Now 3 months, but what we need is clarity. Sure, not improve the climate in which we deal with the government. The only thing which we criticize is unilateral action without coordination. There's still one which works in the mayoral building. Yes, fully it holds, and it's the opposite is true, because we want full normalization, which for us means, of course, eventually mutual recognition, because, again, it's for us unimaginable that we accept countries into the EU which do not recognize each other.
Është vënë për punë të kryer që jetëgjatësia e dinarit në Kosovë e gjon fundin në fund të shkurtit. Kjo është thonë nga kryeministri i Kosovës Albin Kurti në Bloomberg, i cili konkludoi që do të del fitimtar nga kjo krizë. Ndërkaq Banka Qendrore e Kosovës e ka nxjerrë një njoftim ku ka njoftuar për një periudhë 3 mujore të tranzicionit, me çka dukej se tingëllonte sikur po përmbushet kërkesa e Quintit. Në lidhje me këto zhvillime, e kam të ftuar ambasadorin gjerman Jorn Rohde në një intervistë për Nacionalen, ku do të bisedojmë edhe për shumë çështje të tjera. All right, Mr. Ambassador, it's a pleasure having you here.
Yeah, thanks, Josiah, for having me here with your audience.
Okay. I want to begin this interview with the dinar issue, which Germany, but also the Quint, has not objected as such, but only the manner of its implementation. Some would also say the ethics of it. The Prime Minister, speaking to Bloomberg, said that he will provide a smooth transition for this dinar issue, but till the end of February. And now the central bank has also issued a statement that says a 3-month period will be provided. Do you take this as being rebuffed by the Kosovo government again, or do you see this as fulfilling to your council, say, for example?
Look, thanks for your question. I mean, the whole issue has been occupying us, the public, for the last 3 weeks. And first we had no transition, then we had a month. Now we apparently have 3 months. I won't delve into details. The only thing we have said from the beginning is it's a legitimate right of Kosovo to make the euro the sole legal tender in Kosovo. And second, what we criticize, as you said correctly, is the way of implementation and the question of communication. So for me, the essence of the question is, do we have a situation where next week or this week, when the Serb minority gets its pensions, salaries until now from Serbia, do they get it next week until the transition period is over, or do we have problems there? And that's the core of the issue. That's why you had protests today in Mitrovica North. And if that is solved, fine. If it's not solved, we still have a problem.
So you don't take this central bank's new announcement, you don't take that to be as, sort of fulfilling the Quint's request to sort of postpone and give additional, say, sufficient time for the transition?
What I say, I cannot judge it. Our judgments are based on what happens on the ground. And, there are those who issue a regulation and those who are affected by it. And if you have a solution, I'm the last one to criticize it. But so far, we have seen, on the demands of internationals, of the affected, we have seen demands. And then suddenly, step by step, there are new announcements, 1 month, now 3 months. But what we need is clarity for all sides.
I know it's probably inappropriate to draw parallels, but your American colleague has said that this manner of implementation will certainly affect the quality of the partnership between Kosovo and the US. Could you say the same thing about Germany with its relation with Kosovo?
The only thing I would say is it has for sure not improved the climate in which we deal with the government. I mean, Germany is one of the closest partners of Kosovo. Last week, my defense minister was here, and he also said, "Look, it's your right to implement this, to make this decision, but do it with a longer implementation period." And make it such a way that everybody's informed and nobody afraid. And we have to come to this step. I don't see yet that we have come to this step.
But when you speak to the Kosovo government, what do they tell you about the urgency of implementing this fast and quick and, getting it over with?
I mean, I see. We understand that, we also want so-called, parallel system structures to be integrated fully into the Kosovo system. We want sovereignty for Kosovo. That's why we are so active on, on the Brussels and Ohrid agreement. This is all part of our aim, that Kosovo can exercise its full sovereignty. The only thing which we criticize is unilateral action without coordination.
Staying just quite a bit more in the dinar issue. In the draft statute of the ASM, it is specifically written that the ASM will have a bank account registered with the central bank and licensed by the central bank, so that the financing of the ASM will have, the Kosovo state authorities will have oversight, and it will be transparent and everything. And now, if this is the case, and if it is Serbia also that asks for the establishment of the ASM and also the Quint, isn't this amended regulation a step in that direction?
Of course, but it should be done within the dialogue. That's what we say. If you have those affected who are also, let's say Serbia is affected because it provides the financial means for the Kosovo Serbs often, and then you have to talk. And the ASM was meant to solve all these questions. And again, you have a unilateral step, which was announced in a short way. And let's take an example. You license a bank. To license a bank doesn't happen in 2 days or in 3 days. There's a process, and processes need time. And I would say if you have a plan, you first set up the plan and then you have deadlines, and not first deadlines and then a plan.
Mm-hmm. Because some of the supporters of this government's decisions and etc. say that, okay, the prime minister is clearing the way out of some illegalities such as such, so that when the hard pill to swallow, that's the association, will find a better ground to be implemented upon.
Again, I can only repeat, if something is illegal, let's say for 20 years, it would not hurt if you have this transition period and you solve the problem in 20 years and 3 months or 4 months. That's our only, let's say, point we make. We do it in a proper way, do it according to standards, good governance, and not in an ad hoc basis, which gives, let's say, uncertainty, unclarity on the other side. And that's why you have demonstrations.
Okay. Kosovo hopes to be accepted as a member of Council of Europe. They even expressed themselves fully ready. The criteria are, of course, as we know them, it's the ruling of the Dechani monastery and the formation or the establishment of the ASM. What is Germany's position? Can Kosovo count on Germany's firm support for Council of Europe membership?
You can count on our support for the Council of Europe membership. That's why we last year pulled out, let's say, every stop to have this vote, so that the Kosovo membership application was voted and transferred to the Parliamentary Assembly. So since then, we have seen several delegations of the Council of Europe come here, and we will soon expect the report. And I will repeat what I've said publicly also. You mentioned this Constitutional Court judgment. I see if you want to become a member of a club, you should respect your own court decisions. And I don't know, I haven't seen the report of the rapporteur on Kosovo's membership application, who was here last November. I think this report will soon be published, and then we will see what will be the preconditions which Kosovo has to fulfill before the Parliamentary Assembly will vote, and what will become after. But I'm quite sure that Decan will be a very prominent issue which has to be solved before, because I have seen now 6 governments who haven't implemented it. I've seen 6 governments who have not implemented the ASM, which is an old obligation of Kosovo since 2015. So I think there is time to move.
But the way we saw it, we had a report that was written by some two experts at the Council of Europe, and they say recommendation. And now the Kosovo officials say it's recommendation, it's not a criteria. So the report, they say, does not necessarily mean that you should fulfill or implement the court decision or the ASM. They take it as it's a pure recommendation and nothing more.
You see, I was myself 25 years ago a desk officer for Council of Europe. And when the Parliamentary Assembly, let's say, decides about membership applications, they call it recommendations. But one of the recommendations might say, Kosovo or any other country which wants to accede should do this before. So actually this recommendation, they see it as a condition. But in the end, it's not the Parliamentary Assembly who will decide on membership, it will be the governments. And since I am here since 2020, together with my Quint colleagues and other diplomats, the EU, we have issued each year a clear statement on the implementation, for example, of this Stečajni court decision. Just do it.
Germany maintains that the basic agreement that was reached last year, it maintains that as such as it is, it's not been signed, but it's legally and internationally binding as it is. While Kosovo requires additional guarantee, they say signing it bilaterally with Serbia and then taking that text and depositing it to the UN. Mm-hmm. Some of the Prime Minister's advisor even mock it that with such word guarantee, you cannot even ask for a $10 loan in the bank. Do you think that they have any point?
I don't think that efforts by Germany, France, or Italy and the EU are, let's say, are to be mocked. If again, just before I mentioned ratified agreements by Kosovo, court judgments which have not been implemented. So the EU is of the opinion this is legally binding. I think the special representative of the EU, Miroslav Lajčák, has made several proposals to Kosovo. I don't know whether they have been answered. For us, it's legally binding. We have made a proposal. We have come a long way. The Prime Minister has even said he is ready to accept the agreement, the proposal on the ASM. So the only thing which should happen is that both sides move in the right direction and start implementing it. And for Kosovo, it's mainly the ASM on this agreement. There have been many proposals before. There has been the proposal by a German NGO. There has been a proposal by the Albanian Prime Minister. Now we have the European proposal, which has been acknowledged by the Prime Minister. And if it has been acknowledged, the next step should be to move forward.
There's this general confusion concerning the ASM. The Prime Minister, who on the one hand is always repeatedly saying that we should sign this, I accept it and I sign it, if it is signed. While Mr. Bislimi maintains that after Serbia fulfills its de facto recognition points, which is recognition of passports, stamps, etc., while the head of the parliamentary speaker, rebuffs it as completely scandalous and damageful. Well, the president says that this is the draft. We only have to work to work out our concerns of it. Aren't you confused too, Mr. Ambassador? What is the Kosovo's government position on this very draft of ASM?
What I only hope for is, again, that this issue moves, because you don't have to fully implement the ASM. And of course not, because the whole Brussels agreement is built around Serbia has to do several steps. Kosovo has mainly to do the ASM. So, but the first step should be because there's also this narrative in the public debate that the ASM, some of the provisions might run counter to the Constitution. Fine. If you want to check that, then send it to the Constitutional Court. But that requires an act by the government. So the government could formally acknowledge it and say we have maybe some questions and the Constitutional Court should check it, but it needs a formal act. And that doesn't mean implementation. It's just the first step.
But why do you think that the Kosovo government does not endorse it?
Because they have said so far we need a signature. We say you can move ahead without endangering, without giving in something, because it doesn't mean implementation. It means putting it on the track, so to speak.
Well, the EU, we know, has introduced punitive measures in June last year. And those measures are still in place. They haven't been lifted. Why do you think that those measures have not been lifted? And do you expect them to be lifted anytime soon?
Look, if you see, you read the text from June 3rd, which it says two things. We expect the mayors to temporarily work from other premises than the mayoral building. Hasn't happened yet. There's still one which works in the mayoral building. And, we have a start of the election process. What I'm worried about it is that these measures, these punitive measures, or these measures by the EU increasingly affect also our bilateral aid. As a close, Germany is one of the biggest donors of Kosovo. We have waste collection, wastewater projects in Prizren, Jakova, Pristina, Mitrovica. We have projects together with Kost, because they are co-financed by German bilateral aid and EU means. And if the EU can't disperse the money, the whole project is endangered. And these are projects in the realm of 100 million euros. And I want these measures to be lifted as soon as possible, but the government needs to create the conditions for that.
Well, Mr. Bislimi says he maintains that he's done an agreement in Bratislava with Mr. Lajčák that was supposed to lift those measures. And he says we've fulfilled everything about that. What do you think about...
I mean, you have seen countless statements by the EU and also by bilaterally that we do not agree with this assessment. It's not enough. As I said, there's, for example, one mayor still working in a building, and he could work temporarily because he is under, let's say, recall, and there might be soon a referendum. So Kosovo has to move further, and as long as this doesn't happen, I don't see the measures to be lifted.
Well, the German Chancellor, Olaf Scholz, during his first visit in the region, he made some quite strong remarks in Pristina and Belgrade when he said that it is unthinkable, unthought of, that the two countries join the EU without mutual recognition. But not much later on, Germany partook in, helping this agreement, the Franco-German proposal, and we had no mutual recognition whatsoever. Has Germany lowered its ambitions and expectations in, helping to resolve the Kosovo-Serbia dispute? Do you think that that is still what Mr. Scholz said? Do you think that that still holds on mutual recognition, Kosovo-Serbia?
Yes, fully. It holds, and the opposite is true, because we want full normalization, which for us means, of course, eventually mutual recognition, because, again, it's for us unimaginable that we accept countries into the EU which do not recognize each other. What the European proposal, originally the Franco-German proposal, is a step to full normalization, because it means de facto but not de jure recognition. This comes from our own history. We were patient, and you can't get 100% at once, so you go to 80%, to speak it bluntly. And I think this agreement has been accepted. I mean, it says in Article 4, Serbia will not object to Kosovo's membership in any international organization. So for me, this is an example of our undeterred, let's say, commitment to Kosovo's sovereignty and to eventually to make Kosovo a full member of all European and Atlantic structures.
But if Serbia is not required to de jure recognize in Kosovo, and this text is ingrained in Chapter 45 in its EU accession talks, and Serbia says, okay, I've implemented everything that's in this text, which is ingrained in Chapter 35, it does not ask me to recognize Kosovo, I have to move on further to EU integration.
As I said, our position is unchanged. And, take it on the other side. If this agreement is fully implemented, You have almost, you have normal relations. You have a permanent representation in each country. I remember when I grew up in Germany, we never recognized East Germany, but in the end, it ended. So I cannot look into the future. But one thing is clear, that that Kosovo, with this agreement, will make a giant step forwards towards full normalization and full recognition. And I think that is the most important thing. And that also will greatly benefit, and that's for me also one, it benefits the citizens. When we had incremental steps between West and East Germany, I could see my relatives much more easier. I didn't have to wait for 8 weeks or for a visa anymore, although they lived only 45 kilometers away.
The Federal Republic of Germany celebrates its 75th anniversary, while Kosovo's independence is just 16 now. What would you say Kosovo can or should learn from Germany?
That the most important thing, I mean, I'm speaking now about foreign policy, is to get good neighborly relations and friendship with your neighbors. Germany invaded all its neighbors except Switzerland in the Second World War. It was very difficult. And it took a long time. Reconciliation wasn't easy, but it has to be done, and it has to be a top-down and a bottom-up process. The political leaders have to invest capital and not, let's say, indulge on narratives which say these are the bad guys and these are the good guys. It's never the case. You should not, it's important to deal with the past, but this is one lesson. And especially when you are in a situation where the Western Balkans wants to be fully part of Europe. And of course, we look at this region and say, hey, they don't even get along with each other. Do we really need to incorporate them? So, good neighborly relations are also the best recipe to speed up the process. And of course, internally, Kosovo, like all Western Balkan countries, experiences a lot of migration. Last year, we had about 18,000 visas for work and family reunion. That's a lot. And I think it's good for Germany, but less good for the region. And people should stay here. In order to stay here, you need hope, you need a decent income, you need things like a good pension and health insurance.
Okay, before closing this interview, I want to ask about the Euro 2024 that takes place in Germany this year, which is probably going to be flooded with Kosovars watching the matches. Knowing that from social media that you are a soccer player and fan yourself, what are your expectations on the event?
My expectations is, very egoistic. I hope that Germany can play a good tournament again after a long time, because the last 3 tournaments were quite disappointing. I remember I had a public viewing 3 years ago at the last European Championship where we lost against France. So I think maybe this time, although France is, the German-French friendship is good, but in football, I see France as a competitor. So I hope for many Kosovar visitors to the different places in Germany. And, if you vouch for the German team, even better. But that's my hope. We'll see on the pitch what comes out.
I assure you, you will find a lot of vouchers for Germany.
Yeah.
All right, Mr. Ambassador, it's been a real pleasure having you here, and thanks much for the conversation and for the time.
Thanks very much for having me here, Josiah.